Imagine you tell your friend you can't make it to their party. Simple, right? But instead of just saying, "I can't come," you spend the next 4 minutes typing out this entire novel. You're sorry, you really wanted to come. It's just that work has been insane lately, and you've had this thing going on, and you would totally be there if you could, and you hope they understand, and you feel terrible about it, and you'll make it up to them, you promise. Send. And then you sit there, feeling weirdly exhausted. You didn't cancel a party. You put yourself on trial and argued your own defense. Sound familiar? Good. Because that habit, the compulsive need to explain, justify, and apologize for every decision you make, is quietly costing you more than you realize. And today, we're going to talk about why you do it, what it's actually communicating to the people around you, and exactly what to do instead. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Over-explaining isn't really about being polite. It's not about being thorough or considerate. At its root, over-explaining is about seeking safety. You explain yourself because some part of you believes that if other people understand your reasons well enough, they won't be angry, they won't reject you, they won't think badly of you. The explanation is a shield. And the need for that shield usually comes from somewhere pretty deep. Therapist and author Pete Walker, who has written extensively on complex trauma, describes what he calls the 4 trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. You've probably heard of the first 3. The 4th one, fawn, is less talked about, but it's everywhere. Fawning is what happens when, as a kid, you learned that the safest way to handle conflict or displeasure was to appease the person causing it. Agree quickly, smooth things over, explain yourself thoroughly so they can't stay upset with you. Over time, that survival strategy becomes automatic. It's not a character flaw. It's a coping mechanism that made sense once and now runs in the background of your adult life, whether you need it or not. Here's the problem. The people around you now are not the people who made that strategy necessary. But your nervous system doesn't always know the difference. So you over-explain to your boss when you take a sick day. You over-explain to your partner when you want to spend the evening alone. You over-explain to a stranger when you can't help them with something. And every single time, you're operating from the same unconscious belief. I need your approval to feel okay about this decision. There's a concept in boundary-setting communities called JADE. Justify, argue, defend, explain. The idea is simple. The moment you start jading, you've already lost. And here's why. When you over-explain a decision, you're implicitly treating it as debatable. You're sending the signal that your choices are open for negotiation, that if the other person argues back well enough, you might change your mind. You've invited a conversation you didn't actually want to have. Think about a manager who announces a new policy and then spends 20 minutes justifying every single aspect of it, preempting every objection, apologizing for any inconvenience. Does that inspire confidence? Or does it make you wonder whether they actually believe in what they're saying? The same dynamic plays out in your personal life, every single day. Researchers who study social status and influence have found something counterintuitive. We tend to trust people more when they give fewer reasons for their decisions, not more. A 1978 study by Ellen Langer, the famous copy machine experiment, showed that people comply with requests more readily when a reason is given, but the quality of the reason barely matters. What matters is the signal of confidence behind it. And ironically, the person who says, "I can't make it," communicates more confidence than the person who says, "I can't make it, and here's a 7-point explanation of exactly why, and I'm really sorry, and I hope that's okay." There's also research on what happens when people feel they need to justify everyday choices. Studies on what psychologists call decision justification show that the more we explain a preference, even a trivial one like which flavor of jam we like, the more confused and uncertain we actually become about it. The act of verbalizing justifications can disconnect us from our own instincts. So not only does over-explaining signal insecurity to others, it can actively generate it in you. You start out confident in your decision and talk yourself into doubt. The more you explain, the less people believe you. Not because they think you're lying, but because over-explanation broadcasts anxiety, and anxiety is contagious. People mirror the energy you bring to a decision. If you're nervous about it, they start to feel like maybe they should be too. There's also a social status dimension to this that's worth naming directly. High-status behavior, and by that I don't mean arrogance, I mean the quiet confidence that comes from being secure in yourself, tends to be economical. Short sentences, clear positions, no preemptive apologies. Low-status behavior is verbose, hedging, self-justifying. We read these signals unconsciously, and they shape how much we respect and trust the person in front of us. When you over-explain, you are literally telegraphing insecurity, even when you feel completely justified in your decision. And here's the paradox that makes this especially frustrating. The people you're trying to reassure by explaining yourself can usually feel your anxiety underneath the words. The explanation doesn't calm them down. It transfers your discomfort onto them. So what do you actually do instead? Step 1. Recognize the urge before you act on it. When you feel that familiar pull to write the 4-paragraph text message or the deeply apologetic email, pause. Notice the sensation. That tightening in your chest, that need to make sure they're okay with it. That's the fawn response activating. You don't have to follow it. Step 2. Practice what communication coaches call the brief and complete response. A complete response to, "Can you come?" is, "I can't make it, but have a great time." That's it. It's not rude, it's not cold, it's respectful of both your time and theirs. The more you practice giving brief, complete responses, the more natural it feels, and the more your nervous system learns that the world doesn't end when you don't justify yourself to everyone. Step 3. Learn to sit with the discomfort. The main reason we over-explain is that we can't tolerate the thought that someone might be temporarily unhappy with our decision. But here's a reality check. Other people's feelings about your choices are not your responsibility to manage. They are allowed to be disappointed. You are allowed to disappoint them. That is a completely normal part of adult relationships. The goal is not to make everyone comfortable at all times. The goal is to be honest. Step 4. Find your internal validator. Over-explanation is a symptom of looking outside yourself for permission to feel okay about your own decisions. The long-term fix is building what psychologists call internal locus of control, the belief that your own judgment is a valid source of security. Before you send the explanation, ask yourself, do I actually think this decision is reasonable? If the answer is yes, you already have everything you need. You don't need them to agree. You just need you to agree. This is harder than it sounds when you've spent years using other people's reactions as a kind of emotional compass. But it's a skill, not a personality trait. Therapists who work with fawn response patterns often use a simple daily check-in. Before you justify a decision to someone else, write down why the decision makes sense to you. Not for them, for yourself. Getting your own reasoning clear before you communicate it to anyone else is one of the most effective ways to stop the over-explanation loop before it starts. Step 5. Use no as a complete sentence. Not a rude one, a complete one. No, I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. I'm going to pass on this one. These are full, grammatically valid, socially acceptable responses. The discomfort you feel after saying them briefly will pass. The respect you gain, from others and from yourself, builds over time. Here's the thing. Every time you over-explain, you train the people around you to expect explanations. You teach them that your decisions come with asterisks and footnotes, that there's always room to push back. And every time you hold a boundary without justifying it, you train them, and yourself, to trust that your yes means yes, and your no means no. That kind of quiet confidence is not something you're born with. It's not a personality trait. It's a practice. It's the accumulated result of 100 small moments where you chose to trust yourself over seeking approval. You don't owe anyone a verdict. You just get to make a choice. Start there.